Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, board-certified criminal defense lawyer. First of all, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. This is today we're reacting to I'm going to kind of break down the pleadings that are in this case with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. There's a complaint that was issued by Johnny Depp. He's suing Amber Heard, okay? And then she has to answer that complaint, and then she's counterclaimed. So she's got her own claims that she's making against Mr. Johnny Depp. Now, first of all, I'm a criminal defense lawyer, and the burden of proof in a criminal case is beyond a reasonable doubt. It's the highest standard in any of our cases in our judicial system. Okay. The standard in a civil case, which I do trial civil cases from time to time if they're, decent sized civil cases. In fact, I'm trying one this August. I have a client that's been burned over 40% of his body, and they had to use 40% of the rest of his body for a skin graft. So we do try civil cases, but the standard in a civil case is slightly more true than not. So 50.01%. And here's the other part in a civil case. There's a thing called comparative fault. You don't have that in criminal law. But a comparative fault is, I sue you, you answer, and you say, well, I may have done this, but you're at fault because X. So like in a car accident, for example. I may be at fault for the car accident, but you might be 20% at fault. And then what happens is whatever damages you get from an award gets reduced by your own fault. That's the other part of it. But here, let's dive into what the claim is by Johnny Depp. The first, claim, when you issue a complaint to somebody else, you're suing them, you have to state what your claim is, okay? And count one is for defamation for statements Ms. Heard's December 2018 op-ed in the online edition of the Washington Post. And here's basically the nuts and bolts of this. The sexual violence op-ed contained the following false and defamatory statements concerning Mr. Depp. Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence and face our culture's wrath. That has to change. The implication, even though she doesn't mention Johnny Depp there, the implication is she was married to him at the time, and she's talking about things that she says she's personally experienced. Then, 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of the culture's wrath for women who speak out. And then another statement that's in the complaint is that I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse. The implication there is that the institutions are protecting Johnny Depp. I write this as a woman who had to change my phone number weekly, which is probably bullshit, because I was getting death threats. From who? For months, I rarely left my apartment, and when I did, I was pursued by camera drones and photographers on foot, on motorcycles and in cars, tabloid outlets that posted pictures of me, spun them in a negative light. I felt as though I was on trial in the court of public opinion, and my life and livelihood depended upon a myriad of judgments far beyond my control. And so the claim is that these statements are concerning Mr. Depp, that's right out of the complaint, and he is Mr. Heard's former husband, and she publicly and falsely accused him of domestic abuse in May 16. So that's the first count, right? And then there's two other counts. Defamation for statements in Ms. Heard's December 2018 op-ed in the print edition in the Washington Post, and it's basically the same statements that we're talking about. And count 3, defamation for statements made in an op-ed in which Ms. Heard republished when she retweeted the link. So what do you need for defamation? Especially when you have a public figure like Johnny Depp. You need a false statement that is malicious. In other words, she has to know what she's saying is not true. So it puts Johnny Depp in a position where he has to prove basically that he didn't do this. There's almost a presumption that he did this, in the article. He's got to prove that it's false. and that she knew it was false, and she did it with malicious intent. And if you look at some of the witnesses that he's presented, for example, his security guard did some damage to Amber Heard and the way she presented things. And I don't think that the cross-examination of him damaged anybody, but he was there at their honeymoon. He was there and saw them on a number of occasions. So the actual substance of whether there was domestic violence or not, there were certain fact witnesses. For example, the limo driver. He testified, and this was supposedly right after some abuse had occurred, that she looked like she was just having fun, and he drove her to Coachella. I mean, she wasn't being taken to a shelter or to the ER or anything else like that. He was taking her and some people over to Coachella, which is a famous music festival. So when you have those snippets of people who have actually seen her right around a time when some domestic abuse is supposed to have occurred, and it doesn't pan out for her, that helps Johnny Depp a lot. But he can't just show that he also has to show that he was damaged by it. So you have to prove your damages. And in this case, he was able to, I think, successfully, because one of their experts was a movie expert. And he was able to say that, the franchise didn't hire him for Pirates 6. And, and I thought it was inartful how the Miss Heard's lawyers tried to impugn their credibility on the success of Pirates 5. He says, well, the amount of money was going down, wasn't it? And all of a sudden, yeah, but it was $800 million, so, and anybody would love to have an $800 million movie. Of course they would. And then they have his accountant, and his accountant was able to talk about various spending patterns and various things with regard to his finances. Then you also have the ACLU person who testified about various donations that were supposed to be given. And that called into question Miss Heard's integrity and her truthfulness, because she said she donated, all 7 million, and it turned out not to be true. So now the plaintiff in this case has rested. So here's how it goes. The plaintiff goes first. They present their witnesses, and then, the defense cross-examines them. Then they rest. And after they rest, the defense has a chance to now present their case. Now, what is the defense going to do? This is Amber Heard. And here's the other thing. When the plaintiff is doing their presentation of their witnesses, they also sort of have to refute the counterclaim that Amber Heard is presenting. So you've got two things going on at the same time. So that's what makes it complicated. You've got Johnny Depp putting forth all his 3 claims of defamation, basically. And those are fairly simple and straightforward. But then with each witness, if they can knock out the counterclaims, they've got to try to do that as well. So that's why some of the questioning has been all over the map. And so the expert that Johnny Depp called, the psychologist, she was called to testify to refute the claims that Miss Heard was bringing. So that's why she was able to have, let's just talk about what those claims are. One, she wants a declaratory judgment per Virginia code under 801. And basically, Miss Heard requests that this court, pursuant to Virginia Code 801-184, declare that she is immune from civil liability for Depp's claims in this complaint and for the statements in her op-ed, because Miss Heard's op-ed is regarding matters of public concern that would be protected under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution by Miss Heard, blah, 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 fucking blah. Here's the thing. The First Amendment applies to the government. All right, you do have a right to free speech, but you don't have an unlimited. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater, for example. And you can't publish defamatory things against somebody and cause them harm that are false. So if the jury concludes that what she is saying is false, then it's just a matter of damages from there. So the first claim that Amber Heard is saying is she wants to make the court judge that she is immune and all of her statements were protected under the First Amendment, which they're not. So that claim will fail 100%. Then defamation and defamation per se. She's claiming defamation against Johnny Depp. There was a GQ article. It contains the following false and defamatory statements, implications of Ms. Heard. Depp falsely alleged that Ms. Heard committed the crime of perjuring herself in connection with the 2016 DVRO, Domestic Violence Restraining Order, preceding statement with no truth, judicial statements whatsoever. Depp further falsely alleged that Ms. Heard fabricated the bruising on her face and otherwise perjured herself in connection with the 2016 DVRO by stating that Depp was empathic about his version of the events. Ms. Heard was at a party the next day. Her eye wasn't closed. She had hair over her eye, but you could see the eye wasn't shut. 25 feet away from her, however, how the fuck am I going to hit her? Which, by the way, is the last thing I would have done. So that's one of the statements. So you've got some defamatory statements that she claims that Johnny made about her. And the last one is this violation of the Virginia Computer Crimes Act. The Virginia Computer Crimes Act prescribes harassment by computer, which occurs when any person with the intent to coerce, intimidate, or harass uses a computer to communicate obscene, vulgar, profane, lewd, lascivious, or indecent language, or make any suggestion or proposal of an obscene nature or threats. So through the conduct described above, Mr. Depp either directly or through his agents, including Waldman, acting on his behalf in Virginia, has launched a nationwide campaign, including from or through Virginia, using this Virginia litigation to harass, abuse, and discredit Ms. Heard and to cause harm to her economically. Mr. Depp individually and through his agents, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that claim, I don't see her claims going anywhere. But that's why the testimony has gone all over the place. Both sides are claiming that they've been defamed. Miss Heard, her claim is $100 million. Not on her, I mean, she's worth maybe 8, I think, is what the last estimate I read was. And how has she been damaged to the extent of $100 million? And they're using the litigation, like this litigation itself is a violation of the Virginia Crimes Act, which it's not. So I don't think any of her claims are going to be merited. Johnny Depp is suing for $50 million, and that's much more of a likely scenario. Johnny Depp lost for sure Pirates 6, and I think his fee in that was $22 million. So when you have Johnny Depp come forward and he has provable economic damages, it's really amazing to see, or it's not that far of a stretch to see that his damages are real. Amber Heard, on the other hand, she has Aquaman, and I don't know much else. But so look at Amber Heard. Now, she has to prove her damages. Let's just analyze where the trial's at right now. Right now, the plaintiff is rested, and they presented Johnny Depp. They presented psychologists who analyzed Amber Heard. They presented some fact witnesses that talk about whether they've seen abuse. They've also had economic damages. So that's what essentially the plaintiff's case. Now you're going to hear Amber Heard's side. Amber Heard testified on direct, and that's where the trial last left off. They were done with the direct examination. And remember what direct and cross is. Direct examination is, and then what happened? And then where did you come from? And, open-ended questions. And cross-examination is, isn't it true that you lied on this occasion? Isn't it true? And it's not? Well, here, look at your testimony here. Isn't it true that this happened? And basically you're testifying, but you're getting the witness to say yes or no, yes. And usually you have to know the answer to the questions that you're asking, because if you don't give a witness that's that hostile the opportunity to explain themselves. So the trial last left off after the plaintiff rested and that we just had the direct of Amber Heard. Why did Amber Heard go first? Well, she went first because she testified about a lot of things, right? And as they go forward, now they're going to be able to have other people repeat her testimony, repeat what they call prior consistent statements. Yes, she told me this. Yes, she told me that, you know. And so you're going to hear a lot of repeat, but you're going to have an incredible cross-examination. And so we'll get into that on part 2 of this. But aside from that, so she has to prove that she was not only defamed by Johnny Depp, but that she has economic damages. And we're going to see, I would think we're going to see an expert on her side similar to what we saw on Mr. Depp's side. However, I think her economic damages might be a little more speculative, but we're still going to see somebody testify that she's got $100 million in economic damages. Now, there was something that happened during the trial that everybody probably saw. When she brings up this Kate Moss incident, she said, I was at the top of the stairs and I felt similar to Kate Moss. In other words, there was some allegation that he pushed her down a flight of stairs or something like that. Well, look at this. When she says that, Johnny Depp's lawyer, I don't think, expected her to testify about that. And you could see the gears clicking in his head. And I basically fist bumped his partner. It was like, you know, it was going like that. And he was excited because it opened the door to that event.
I don't hesitate. I don't wait. I just, in my head, instantly think of Kate Moss and the stairs, and I swung at him. And all of my relationship to date with Johnny.
Once her case is done, Johnny Depp and his lawyers will have the opportunity for rebuttal. So whether Kate Moss comes in and testifies, or whether there's somebody else, some other fact witness, and I guarantee it's going to be some other fact witness, is going to come in and testify in rebuttal. And what rebuttal is, you have to specifically only reference things that were referenced in the prior testimony or the prior case of the defense in this case. So you can't just bring up stuff you've never brought up before. It has to be specifically targeted to something that the defense brought up. You watch what happens. I bet you there's going to be a big moment in this trial when that issue of the Kate Moss story comes up. And it's going to be some great fact witness. And we'll see what happens there. So this is kind of just an overview of what the complaint was, and what they have to answer the complaint, and then they have counterclaims. And here's the other thing about what this judge has done. This judge has limited this trial to so many hours per side, and there isn't a whole lot left. I bet you there's maybe a week of this trial left, if that. And she said, once you're done, you're done. You know, once your hours are up, they're up. If it's in the middle of a witness, it's in the middle of a witness. And they're counting down. And I don't think that the defense has been too judicious with their time. They used almost the same amount of time in defending on cross-examination that the plaintiff has used. So we'll see how this plays out by the rest of the week. This is Bruce Rivers. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Like, subscribe. We're also doing a little thing on Patreon. Subscribe to Patreon. We're helping some good people out with that dough. And we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.